Hi, I'm Dave Vickers and welcome to the Photo Show. Sometimes as a photographer, you're going to need photographs of yourself, whether it's for use on social media, on your website, or for advertising purposes. You're going to need to try and take or have a photograph taken of yourself. And as a photographer, it's quite often difficult to either find someone you trust to take it or to have someone available to take the photograph for you. So what we're going to look at today is how to take a good self-portrait. There's a number of things we need to work out with this. First of all is how do you hold the camera? Because obviously if you're standing here having your photograph taken, you can't hold the camera. So what I've done is I've set the camera up on a steady tripod. It's about 4 or 5 feet away from me. And what I've done is I've set the tripod height so that the lens is at my eye level. So where I'm standing, I'm looking directly down the lens, so I know that I'm going to get good eye contact in the portrait and the camera is steady and sturdy. The next issue we're going to have is focusing the image, because if I'm here being photographed, I can't be behind the camera focusing the image. So what we need to do is find a way that we can focus the camera to be in the same area that I'm going to be for the photograph. So what I've done here is I've downloaded, let's bring this in, this is a focusing chart. Now I just typed in focusing chart into Google and I found this as a free download. I think it was on the DP Review website. And it's basically a chart that you can use to focus on. I've printed it out on a piece of photo paper and I've taped it to a light stand. And I've set the light stand up so that it's about my head height. The top of the image here is about the top of my head, so we can use this as the target area for focusing the image. So if I bring this across to where I want to be in the image, now I want to be, for what I'm looking for, I want to be slightly to one side of the image. I want to have a bit of blank space on one side. If I want to put wording or advertising materials and so, I can crop it down to be a straight portrait as well, but then I've got the full size image if I ever want to use that. So first off, let's put this roughly where we want, and as you can see, it's at my head height. So now that the focusing image is up there, let's go to the back of the camera and focus on this so we can set our focus up so we know that the portrait's going to be sharp. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got the camera set up in live view so we can watch what's going on the back of the camera. And you can see we've got our framing set up, we've got our focusing image there to one side, but our camera's focusing box is in the center. If we focus there, it's going to focus on the background. So it's not going to be sharp when we replace ourselves with the focusing image. So the first thing we're going to need to do is use the multi-selector wheel on the back to bring our focusing square across to the focusing image. If we bring it so it's central on the image there, around there is going to be good. Now you can see that our focusing square is bang on the center of the focusing image, so that when we focus the camera, that is where it's going to set its focus on. That's where the sharpness is going to be. So now if we half press the shutter button, you can see the camera refocuses and the square's gone green, meaning that it is focused and sharp on the focusing image. So when we replace ourselves with that image, we're going to be sharp. To make sure that the camera doesn't refocus, I'm now going to switch it from autofocus to manual focus. And you can see in the top here, just put it back, you can see at the top there it's lit up as AFS. Let's refocus that again. It's sharp and focus there because it's gone green, and we'll switch that across to manual focus now. And now that focus point is locked so that when we replace ourselves with the focusing image, we're going to be sharp. So that's the camera focused and ready to shoot. The next problem we're going to have is actually firing the camera. Now you can buy remote triggers to do this, but we're not going to use one because not everyone's got one, so I'm going to show you the next easiest way of doing it, which is to set your camera onto self-timer. Now if you look at the top here, you can see that I'm set on S for single shot. If I push this down and start to go around the options here, there, we've got a little clock icon here, which is our marker for self-timer. So now the self-timer is set, it's going to give us a 10-second delay. Once we push the shutter on the camera, we're going to get a 10-second delay before the camera actually fires. So let's push the shutter. It's now going to wait 10 seconds before it actually fires the shutter, and we can take the image. There you go. The shutter waited, fired, and then we have the image of our focusing screen. So that's the basic setup now. We've set up the camera on the tripod, we've set it up so that the camera is in focus and in the right position, and the camera is on a self-timer. So the next thing we need to do is to swap me for the focusing screen and start taking some photos. Right, so that's the basic setup now. We've got the camera steady on a tripod, we've set the focus point using our focusing image, and we've set the camera to be on self-timer, so we've got a 10-second delay before the image is actually taken. That will give me time to get set up and get my best face on. What I've also done here is I've set up a single light here with a softbox, which is going to light me from one side, and I've got a speed light on the back, which is just going to whiten up the background. This is not in the studio, this is it's actually in my kitchen. So we've got a white wall behind us that we're using here. It's nowhere fancy, nowhere flash. So we're just using a single light here for the main light for the portrait, and a speed light in the back for whitening out the background, so we're going to get that studio look. I've also set the camera up to shoot in RAW, so because obviously I'm going to need a lot of post-production work on this face, but that gives us a lot of leeway for things we can do with the picture afterwards. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap out the focusing card, take that out, and replace it with me. So if I've marked on the floor where the stand is, so I know exactly where to stand. Let's move that to one side there. And if I get myself in position, so I'm now in the position exactly where the focusing screen was, so I know that I'm in focus. The marker on the back of the camera should be exactly where my face is. As far as posing goes, obviously you want to be as relaxed as possible. I'm going to stand kind of almost 3/4 on, facing towards the main light, and turn my head back towards the camera. This is giving sort of a bit more of an angle. Now, one of the other problems here is, being a man of my age, I tend to get a bit of a double chin, and you may find this with yourself or with other people that you're photographing. And if I stand up straight, you can see that I'm getting a bit of a double chin shown there. Now, what a lot of people do when they're aware of having a double chin and they're being photographed is they do this to lift up their head, to tighten this bit up. It looks awful, and the first thing, whenever I see a photograph where someone's doing that, I know what they're trying to do is hide a double chin. So one of the things to do, instead of lifting your head up like that, is push your head slightly forward. If you see, if I stand up straight, we've got the double chin there. If I push my head slightly forward, we're starting to get a bit more definition around here and the bottom there. And as well as that, the way I've got the light set at a 45-degree angle, so we should hopefully create some shadow underneath, which should slim my face down a little bit and make me a lot happier. So let's get on, let's take some images and see what we got. I've also got a change of clothes. You don't want to set up and do this more than once. It's as uncomfortable as it is normally being photographed. So I've got a jacket, a t-shirt, a shirt, and I'll use some combinations of that. So I'll get a wide variety of photographs. I may only like one of them, I might not like any of them, but I may end up with 2 or 3 different looks that I can use for different purposes. So let's get on now and start taking the photos. Okay, so now we're ready. I'm in the position that I want to be in. I need to come to the camera, press the shutter button to start the 10-second, get myself in position in that time, and get ready to have the photo taken. So let's push the shutter. Okay, there's our first image. Let's have a quick look at the back. I think I need to be over to one side more. So let's bring me over to the position I need to be in. Let's find the shutter again. Head slightly forward, a slight tilt, looking down the lens. Okay, so look at that one. Slightly better. And we'll just carry on like that. If we just carry on trying different options and angles, and the more you take, the more variety you have to pick from, and hopefully the better the photos you'll end up with. smarten up a little bit, try something a little bit different. Get all 4 hairs in place and go again. Turn myself even more that way. Bring my head around slightly more. I think we're getting something. We're going to do the last costume change, just put a jacket back on now. And see, out of 2 shirt changes and a jacket, you managed to get 4 different looks. And hopefully, somewhere in here will be something we can use. Okay, so that's the basis of taking a self-portrait. First thing we did is we set the tripod up so that the camera was at around eye level. The lens of the camera is around my eyes so that when we're taking the photograph, we're getting good eye contact with the image. Next thing we did was to set our focus point, and we used the focus image that we downloaded from the internet, and we set it up in the position where we wanted to be in the photograph and set the camera's focus on that point. Once that focus was set, we then changed the camera setting to manual focus so that it wasn't constantly refocusing and that focus point was locked in. Third thing we did was we set the camera onto a self-timer. That gave us a 10-second delay from pushing the shutter to be able to get ourselves back into position and ready for when the photograph was going to be taken. And finally, we took loads of images. We gave ourselves a really wide choice of images to pick from, so hopefully within that amount we're going to get something we like. You're never going to be more critical of a photograph unless if it's one of yourself. You're always going to be critical of images of yourself. So hopefully that's been of help. I'm Dave Vickers. Until next time, see you then.